I worked 3 jobs so my husband could build his company, then he left me for a younger woman. The day my husband told me he was leaving, I was standing in the kitchen wearing a grocery store uniform that smelled like coffee and cardboard boxes. My feet hurt, my back hurt, and after working 16 hours between 2 jobs, all I wanted was a hot shower and a few hours of sleep before starting my 3rd shift the next morning. Instead, I watched the man I had spent 23 years loving look me in the eyes and say words that shattered my world. I met someone else. At first, I laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it sounded impossible. This was Ethan, the man I had supported through every struggle. The man whose dreams had become my dreams. The man for whom I had sacrificed almost everything. "What are you talking about?" I asked quietly. He avoided my eyes. "Her name is Vanessa." I felt my stomach drop. How long? A year. A year. For 12 months, he had come home and kissed me goodbye every morning. For 12 months, he had told me he was working late. For 12 months, he had looked me in the face and lied. Then came the words that hurt even more. "I haven't been happy for a long time, Sarah." I stared at him. Haven't been happy. I had worked 3 jobs so he could start his company. 3 jobs. While he attended networking events, I cleaned offices at night. While he met investors, I stocked shelves before sunrise. While he talked about changing the world, I skipped meals to pay our bills. I wanted to scream. Instead, I whispered, "Everything you have exists because we built it together." His expression hardened. "No, I built it." The silence that followed felt endless. Then he picked up his suitcase and walked out the door. Just like that, 23 years of marriage ended in less than 10 minutes. I didn't cry immediately. I simply stood there staring at the empty doorway. Eventually, I sank onto the kitchen floor. And for the first time in my life, I didn't know what came next. The following months were brutal. The divorce was finalized quickly. Ethan had excellent lawyers. Apparently, success had made him very prepared. I received a modest settlement, but nowhere near what I expected after decades of supporting his business from the beginning. Many people told me to fight harder. But I was exhausted, emotionally, mentally, physically. I didn't have the strength for another battle. So I moved into a small apartment on the edge of town. The place was tiny. The bedroom barely fit a queen-size bed. The kitchen was old. The carpet needed replacing. But it was mine. For the first time in decades, every decision belonged to me. At 52 years old, I had to start over. Most people would call that terrifying. And they would be right. The first few months were lonely. Friends didn't know what to say. Some disappeared completely. Others quietly chose Ethan's side because of his wealth and influence. The loneliness was overwhelming. One rainy evening, I was sitting near my apartment window when I noticed an elderly woman struggling with grocery bags in the parking lot. The wind was fierce. One of the bags ripped open. Cans rolled everywhere. Without thinking, I grabbed my coat and rushed outside. "Let me help you," I said. The woman smiled gratefully. "Thank you, dear." Together we gathered the groceries. I carried everything upstairs to her apartment. Her name was Margaret. She was 81 years old and lived alone. Her husband had passed away years earlier. Her children lived in different states. Before leaving, I noticed her refrigerator was nearly empty. Something about that bothered me. The next day, I returned with homemade soup. Then I came back a few days later with fresh bread. Soon, helping Margaret became part of my routine. She reminded me that kindness still mattered. That being useful still mattered. That I still mattered. One afternoon, while drinking tea in her apartment, she looked at me thoughtfully. "You spend a lot of time taking care of other people." I smiled. "I guess I always have." "And who takes care of you?" The question caught me off guard. I didn't have an answer. Weeks passed. Then months. Little by little, life became less painful. I started volunteering at a community center on weekends. Many of the seniors there simply needed someone to talk to. Someone who would listen. Someone who cared. I understood loneliness. So I listened. One gentleman named Robert talked endlessly about baseball. Another woman named Helen showed me photographs from the 1960s. Every conversation felt meaningful. Every smile felt genuine. For the first time in years, I wasn't helping someone because I had to. I was helping because I wanted to. One snowy December morning, I arrived at the community center and found everyone unusually excited. People were decorating. Volunteers were carrying boxes. A holiday charity event was being organized. Families in need would receive food, gifts, and winter clothing. Without hesitation, I offered to help. For 2 weeks, I worked tirelessly. Sorting donations, wrapping presents, delivering meals. The work reminded me of who I used to be before bitterness threatened to consume me. Then something unexpected happened. A local newspaper published an article about the event. Several volunteers were featured, including me. I didn't think much of it. Until a week later, my phone rang. The caller ID displayed an unfamiliar number. "Hello, Sarah." The voice was familiar, painfully familiar. "Ethan." My heart tightened. "What do you want?" There was a pause. "I saw your picture in the newspaper." I remained silent. "You look happy." I almost laughed. For 2 years, he hadn't contacted me. Now suddenly he was interested. "What do you need, Ethan?" Another pause. Then his voice softened. "Can we meet?" Against my better judgment, I agreed. Curiosity won. We met at a small cafe downtown. The moment I saw him, I noticed the difference. He looked older, tired. His confidence seemed forced. The expensive suit couldn't hide the sadness in his eyes. After a few minutes of awkward conversation, he finally said it. Vanessa left. I wasn't surprised. What happened? He stared into his coffee. She liked the lifestyle more than she liked me. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. For years he had believed success could buy happiness. Apparently, he had learned otherwise. "I've made a lot of mistakes, Sarah." I nodded. "Yes, you have." His eyes filled with regret. "I didn't appreciate you." I looked out the window. Part of me had waited years to hear those words. Yet now that they had arrived, they felt strangely empty. Because healing had changed me, I no longer needed his apology to move forward. Still, I listened. For nearly an hour, he spoke about loneliness, about regret, about realizing too late what truly mattered. When he finished, silence settled between us. Finally, he asked the question I knew was coming. "Do you think you could ever forgive me?" I thought carefully. Not because forgiveness was difficult. Because honesty mattered. Then I answered, "I forgave you a long time ago." His eyes widened. "You did. Forgiveness wasn't for you. It was for me." Tears formed in his eyes. For a moment, I saw the man I had once loved. The man who had existed before ambition consumed him. But some chapters cannot be rewritten, only accepted. As we stood to leave, he looked at me. "I don't deserve your kindness." I smiled gently. "Maybe not." Then I added something he clearly didn't expect. "But everyone deserves a chance to become better." Months passed after that meeting. Life continued moving forward. One afternoon, Margaret knocked on my apartment door carrying an envelope. "Open it," she said. Inside was a letter, and a photograph. Confused, I looked at her. She smiled. "Keep reading." The letter explained everything. Years earlier, Margaret and her late husband had established a small charitable foundation. Its purpose was simple: support ordinary people doing extraordinary things for their communities. Apparently, Margaret had nominated me. Without my knowledge, the board had unanimously approved. I was being awarded funding to launch a community outreach program focused on helping isolated seniors. I couldn't believe it. Tears filled my eyes. "Why would you do this?" Margaret squeezed my hand. "Because one rainy day, a stranger helped me pick up my groceries." I cried openly. Not because of the money. Because someone had seen me. Truly seen me. Over the following year, the program expanded beyond anything I imagined. Volunteers joined. Local businesses donated supplies. Hundreds of seniors received support, companionship, transportation, and care. Lives changed, including mine. One spring afternoon, I stood inside a community center filled with laughter. Families gathered. Volunteers worked together. Seniors shared stories. Children played games. The room overflowed with life. As I looked around, I realized something remarkable. The worst day of my life had quietly become the beginning of my best chapter. Not because my pain disappeared. Not because betrayal didn't hurt. But because suffering had opened a door I never knew existed. A door leading toward purpose. Toward connection. Toward people who valued kindness over status. As sunlight streamed through the windows, Margaret walked beside me. She slipped her arm through mine. You built something beautiful. I shook my head. No. Looking around the room, I smiled. We built it together. And for the first time in a very long time, the future felt brighter than the past.